What'd y'all pick for us this morning?
Spinach.
Spinach. So it's starting to get hotter outside, and when it gets hot outside, things in the garden want to bolt. Have you seen anything bolt in the garden yet?
Some lettuce.
Some of the lettuces have. So we're processing our spinach today before it starts to bolt. And we're going to dehydrate this to turn it into a powder. So the girls have helped me pick a bunch of the spinach and remove the stems. From here, we've got to rinse them off and spin them dry, and then we're going to get them going in the dehydrator. And this is just helping us remove any dirt or bugs or anything that may be on them. If we see any yellow spots, like this one right here has got a yellow spot, we'll cut those out and remove them.
And this one?
You see another one with it? Yep, so let's take that one and I'll cut that out.
It's getting a little easier.
Yeah, as it speeds up, it gets a little bit easier.
Should we stop it now?
We'll stop it in just a second.
Serious?
Alright, so let's see how much water it took out.
Wow, that much.
Yeah, it did add a good bit.
Should we dump the
So
water?
you can see all that water that'll be saving us from having extra time in the dehydrator.
Whoa!
Good job.
What happens if I touch?
It just makes it a little bit harder for them to dry. Thank you, Lizzie. So let's see if we can get another little one on there.
Yeah. Is that ready to go?
Yep, this one's about ready to go in.
What do you think we'll do with this little piece of beet?
We've got the dehydrator fully packed, so we're going to go ahead and cut it on. For spinach, we're going to do 125 for about 4 to 6 hours. After the 4-hour mark, you'll want to check it and make sure it's fully done. It needs to be nice and crispy. If it's not done, just add some more time and keep an eye on it. If you can hear these, they're nice and crisp now. We've got this ground down to a fine powder. As you can see, there are some bigger pieces and stems. I've set any of the little stems I got out there to the side because we don't really want that to be in there. But what we're going to do is we're going to send this through a funnel that has a little bit of a filter in it just to help catch any of the big pieces. And any of the big pieces we'll just toss aside. So Lizzie, you show us how you're cutting it. We're cutting the big stalk in the middle out. You can set that one, Jenny. So this big thick part right here in the middle, that, yep, you show us, Lizzie?
This part.
That's right. We're gonna cut that out about up to here where it starts getting thin, about right to there. And that's because it'll take a whole lot longer for that really thick stalk to dehydrate. So we're just going to cut it out so we don't have to worry about it. Good job. We got our spinach done here. As you can see, it's a nice fine powder. It comes down to just a small amount for as many vegetables and leaves as it was. It really reduces down. But what we'll do is we'll set this on the counter and we'll put a lid on it, just an airtight lid. And for the first week, up to 10 days really, we're going to be mixing this and shaking it every day. That just helps make sure that there's no moisture pockets in it. Although we process these and dry them for the same amount of time, the leaves, depending on the thicknesses of them, may be different variances of dryness. So if you mix it every day, it helps ensure that it stays an even and kind of evens out in terms of dryness. If you don't mix it, it could get pockets where moisture builds up, which could cause mold or just in general cause it to spoil, and you do not want that to happen. So we'll go ahead and just mix it or shake it for the first 5 to 10 days really. I would err on the side of 10 just to be safe. And we've got our kale all loaded up here. We're just adding a couple more leaves and we're gonna run that throughout the night. We're gonna run this for about 8 hours at the 125. The kale leaves are a fair bit thicker, so they'll take a little bit longer. And what we'll do is just check them first thing in the morning. If they need more time, we'll add it then. So tonight we're fixing ribs for dinner. We've rinsed these off, make sure they're nice and clean, and let it dry for a minute. Before we season it, there's a little strip that we need to remove on here on the back of your ribs. This is the front where all the meat is. On the back though, there's this little like film on the meat. It's not really a film, it's completely natural, but you'll want to remove it. If you leave it on there, it makes it really tough to chew. So you just want to pull it back. You can use a knife if you want to. I found it's just easy if you grab it from one end and pull it all the way off. So we're going to pull that off. And there at the end, it'll just kind of taper off. All right, so from here, I'm going to wash my hands and we're ready to mix up our seasoning. We're going to set those aside for a minute and go ahead and get the seasoning done. For this one, it's a pretty simple seasoning. You can add lots of other things to it. If you like it spicier, you can add like crushed pepper or any of those items. You could add, some people add liquid smoke to it, which if you like smoked meat, that would be completely up your alley. We're gonna do 3/4 a cup, and it doesn't have to be perfect, just a rough 3/4 a cup of brown sugar. And if you have a larger set of ribs, you might as well do a little bit extra. If you've got a small set of ribs, you'll want to stick closer to that 3/4 a cup though. And then we're going to do 1 teaspoon of garlic powder and 1 teaspoon of paprika. And you could also add cayenne pepper if you wanted it spicier, but we like it just like this. We're going to do about 1/2 teaspoon of black pepper. And I don't want to forget our salt here. And we're going to do about 1/2 teaspoon of salt. We'll mix that up. I'm just going to use my little measuring scoop mix here. If you have any chunks of the brown sugar, just make sure to break it up a little bit. Now that that's nice and mixed, we're going to go ahead and rub it onto our meat. So you're just going to pick up some, and it's just easiest if you do this with your hands. You could do it with a spoon, but I found it's just easier with your hands. And you're going to sprinkle it on it. Then you just want to make sure you rub it in there and get it all over it. We're going to do the bottom first. And we're going to flip it over. And do the top. And it's okay if you stick your hands back in here after touching the meat because you're going to be using all of this rub. I try to do the bulk of it on the side that has the meat. We're going to be flipping this over to cook it, but I just prefer to have most of the seasoning on this side. We're going to flip this back over and then cover it with foil. We want this meat side down when we put it in the oven because that's the side that all the juices are going to be on, and we want that to stay on the meaty side. So we're just going to fold over the edges of this. It doesn't have to be perfect, but you do want it pretty airtight to keep the heat in and the moisture in. So we're going to roll that, and then we're going to do the same thing to these edges. You'll want to put it on a cooking sheet that has an edge, because if this does have any juices that go over, it can be really, really messy. From here, we're going to stick it in the oven at 300 degrees for about 2 to 2.5 hours. We've just taken this out. As you can see, the meat has started to pull away from the bone here, and it is nice and loose. You can see the bones are starting to come up. So it is ready for us to put the barbecue sauce on it and broil that. So we're going to add about a cup, maybe 2 cups of barbecue sauce to this. We're going to do the bottom, flip it over, and then do the top, and then stick it back in the oven, and this time on broil. We're just going to use a spoon. You can use a brush if you have one. The underside doesn't need as much as the top does. We're going to use a large set of tongs here and just try to flip it over without ripping it to pieces or breaking it apart. As you can see, this still has a lot of juice in it, so you want to make sure you keep your foil to where it keeps that in. This over a little bit. There we go. And we're going to add barbecue to the top. And that is where I like to pull it out of the oven once the top gets nice and bubbly like that. So we're going to go ahead and pull this out, let it cool off a little bit, and enjoy it.